supposed to be on a date in like 2 hours, but I haven't heard from the guy all day today. So I'm like, is the date still on? But I'm not going to message him and ask him that. I mean, he hasn't said anything, so I'm going to just assume that it's not on and get ready for bed.
I've got a podcast coming out soon on dating rules, but I'm going to share some with you while I write them down. These dating rules are non-negotiable. Number one, you at the early stages should be dating more than one person. We as women get very attached to a certain person. We paint them with the qualities we wish them to have. We decide that somehow they have these qualities, but really it's qualities you yourself have. You should be dating and seeing the different types of dynamics you could have with people, not sleeping with them, dating them. That's what you should be doing. Number two, if he's not confirmed, it's not happening. No, you don't need to follow up. You don't need to ask him if he's lost his phone, lost his life, lost his mind. If he hasn't followed up, it's not happening. You should have a value system in your head that if he doesn't follow up on a Thursday or say where it is or what we're doing, like, yep, we're going on Friday, it's going to be here. You don't need to text, oh, is it still on? It's not on. It's not on. Make your own plans. And if he turns up last minute, do not go on that date. Do you understand? Because then you're going to set the paradigm of always working that way. Be busy, go do something else, plan something else. But I'll go further into that on my podcast. Last but not least, we're not asking men, what are we? We are not asking men, what are we and where is this relationship going? If he wants to enough, he will lock it down. Because remember, we're dating several people. We're not sleeping with them, we're dating them. And if he wants you seriously enough, you're telling me men conquer worlds and do all this madness that we always want to stop them from doing, but he can't pull his finger out and ask you if you want to be exclusive. You don't want to be with that man who you have to drag kicking and screaming into a relationship. So don't ask him. Trust me, if he's really into you and he wants it, it will naturally go that way and it will flow that way. You don't need to micromanage him and herd him like a cat. It doesn't need to happen.
Okay, one of my girlfriends will only set up first dates when she's on her period. She calls this the period preference because she's noticed that she's attracted to like better qualities in men when she's on her period. And when she's not on her period, she feels like she wants the hot bad boy. I was curious. I was like, is this in her head or is this real? Of course, I did the research. Men and women, you should both pay attention because the results are wild. Y-axis is fertility. Women is most fertile, like 2 weeks before her period, and you're on your period, you're down here. Or middle of their cycle, like peak ovulation, these are the characteristics they find most attractive. Arrogant, attractive, muscular, confrontational. But when women are on their period, they care about faithful, warm, good father, financially successful, intelligent. Interestingly, according to Huberman, a man will look at a woman 30 days of her cycle, and when she's most fertile is when he'll think she's the hottest. Both men and women find each other to be the most attractive in the middle of a woman's cycle. In summary, the period preference is real. If you're looking to feel hot, go out in the streets in the middle of your cycle. If you're looking to settle down with a long-term man, only date when you're on your period.
If you want to make the guy you're dating obsessed with you, you need to practice the curfew rule. Let me go ahead and explain. Hello, my name is Carla and restoring healthy mindsets is my thing. If you want the guy that you're on a date with to call you as soon as the date is over, I need you to have a curfew. I practice this and it would never fail me. So first things first, have a curfew. No matter if you like the guy, if he's cute, if the date is going very well, respect the curfew that you have. Say it's 9, 10, 11, whatever it is, but have a curfew set before going on the date. Don't tell him anything until you're about to hit your curfew time. And this is why. We want what we cannot have. And when you have a set curfew, he will be curious to think, what else do you have to do? And you don't even have to have anything planned after. It could just be your skincare or that you need 8 hours of sleep. But a man respects a woman that respects herself. And you leave him thinking about you. And if the date went well, he's going to want more of you. And by adding a curfew, you will basically set him up to ask you to the next date. For example, whenever you tell him, hey, I have to go home, and he wants to continue the date, you tell him, I guess this means you're going to have to set up another date. And you, by doing that, you reassure him that you're interested and that you want another date. This rule never failed me. That's why I say having boundaries and standards is the best. Have fun using them.
I have a dating rule. Maybe you agree with it, maybe you don't. If I have to ask for it, I don't want it. If I need to ask for you to make proper quality time with me, suddenly that time doesn't mean that much. If I have to ask you to get me flowers, I don't really want the flowers. And literally this rule is why I broke up with my ex, because I realized I had to keep begging him and asking him to make time for me and show up and care for me. If I asked, he would do those things, but I still felt like shit, and it's because I shouldn't have to ask for you to want to care about me.
Let's talk about my second date rules, because I actually think first dates are easier than second dates. Number one is do something different than your first date. If you got drinks on your first date, I would not get drinks on your second date. Maybe you go for a walk and get coffee. Maybe you watch the sunset and get dessert. Maybe you go for a hike, but I wouldn't do the same thing that you did on the first date because it's helpful to see someone in a different environment. I also really like to flip the time and the setting. So if I did a Thursday night dinner date with someone for a first date, I would want to do a Sunday morning hike for a second date. My second thing, and this is something that I struggle with and a lot of people struggle with, is don't overvalue someone just because you had a good first date. A good first date is literally just that. It's a good first date. It doesn't mean that you're going to fall in love with this person on your second date. You need to put all this pressure on yourself and they're your soulmate and it better go perfectly or you're going to explode. Just go on the date. You're fine. Number three might be a little controversial, but I like to ask a deal breaker question. If there's something that I for sure definitively know that I cannot have in a partner, I'll ask about it on the second date. Sometimes I'll even ask about it on the first date, but if I didn't get around to it, it's coming up on the second date because I don't want to waste too much time. Number four is bring up one of your niche interests and see how they react. If you're into something that's like really specific or kind of quirky, bring it up. Because if I bring up something silly that I'm really into, for example, I love Glee, and I know it's been off the air for a long time. Did I just love it? I'm sorry. Because I think the way that someone responds when you tell them that you like something really specific or you have this really specific hobby says a lot about them. If they ask good questions, if they can kind of laugh about it, if they can then bring up something themselves that they're into that's a little silly, that to me reveals a lot about a person, as opposed to if I'm like, I love Glee, and they're like, oh, that's fucking weird. Anyways, it kind of shows me who they are a little bit. Number five, I always try to offer to pay for like one section of the date. So if we're going somewhere and there's a parking fee, I'll try to pay for parking. Or if we're going to drinks first and then dinner, I'll get the drinks. Sometimes the guy will say no, which is fine, but I'll at least offer. And number six, it should be under 3 hours. If you're meeting at 6, you need to be exiting by 9. I personally think it's a mistake to let a second date drag on and on and on. I've heard of people going on these like marathon second dates, and I really think you should treat a second date kind of just like a first date. You don't need to be with someone for more than 2 hours, definitely not more than 3 hours. Because if they like you, they can ask you out again and spend more time with you. But I don't want to dedicate 3+ hours of my time to someone who I don't know if I'm going to see again. And I'm not just saying on my end, but also on their end. For all I know, I don't hear from them after the second date, so I don't want to give them 5 hours of my time. Curious what your second date rules are? Drop them in the comments.
Dating rules for us 2020 baddies, because we are not getting effed with this summer, okay? Number one, if he doesn't give you a day and a time in advance to plan a date with you, you're not going, you're busy. Like if he says, you free next week for dinner? You can say yes, but if he doesn't give you a date and time, you're not going, the plan wasn't set, okay? Number two, if he likes you, you will know. If you're confused as to how he feels about you, he doesn't like you. Number three, if he doesn't wish you good morning and good night every day or 90% of the time, he doesn't like you and you're not allowed to get into a relationship with him. Hey, I didn't say that you can't keep talking to him, but you're not dating him until he does. Number four, if he doesn't invite you to plans of him going out or him doing things or text you when he's out, boo, it's not just you. There's other people. We're not dating him. And number five, if you're in a situationship with him for more than a month, you're not dating him. If he's not locking you down after a month, he doesn't want you. He wants to play the field. You're done. Walk away. Bonus, we are being okay with being left. If he doesn't meet our needs, we leave. And we have to be okay with leaving. We're not staying, and we're not putting up with this over and over and over again just for it to happen again. Period. Bye-bye.
I just decided that from here on out, I'm only going to date guys who have a sister. They're just so superior. And they understand women. And they're more emotionally available. They have better style. They understand that the little things matter. They've probably seen Gossip Girl or Sex and the City, one of them, and secretly like it. They act like they didn't like it when their sister had the remote. They were secretly watching and at least know the characters and shit, so I can talk to them about it now. Like, shout out to the sisters out there that are prepping these men. And they understand that I'm going to take a long ass time to get ready. And they won't bother me.